Hello, this is Second Lieutenant Sarah Diffie. I'm a chaplain candidate with the 658th RSG UMT, and today I will be conducting suicide training for you guys. This is going to be about a little under 40-minute video. I do apologize. I wish this could be in person, or at least somehow done live online with you guys, but as per COVID restrictions, here we are. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into this training. All right, welcome everyone to suicide prevention training. This training is titled Your Life Has Value, and a lot of the resources that we utilize in this training is taken from the Living Works ASIST program, or ASSIST. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and jump in. All right, so a lot of people have said that, oh wow, I was thinking about suicide, but someone like you helped save my life. It is true that veterans and other military personnel are disproportionately impacted by suicide. Many defense forces around the world have programs in place to help active duty personnel and veterans be alert to suicide. We know that due to PTSD and other problems at home, a lot of times a whole bunch of issues will compound together and just create extra stress. It might result in depression, and that's how suicidal ideations often come about, specifically within the veteran and military community. So there are many effective industry-based initiatives to help workers be safe from suicide. Organizations can support their workers by including education about suicide in occupational health and safety programs. And so these industry-based initiatives are the initiatives such as the ones Living Works puts out. So the ASSIST training that I mentioned beforehand, where we take a lot of the resources from, that is one of the examples of one of these industry-based initiatives. So often helpers are not who we may expect them to be. It is in everyday situations that we might notice someone in distress. Being prepared to respond can make a difference and can connect people to further help. So a helper can be anyone, basically. If you don't look at yourself as a helper, you got to change that real quick because you never know who around you might be affected with suicidal ideations. You just never know. So it's important that everyone, no matter who you are, no matter what rank you are, and honestly, no matter what community you're in, whether you're with your unit, whether you're at home, whether you're with your friends off post, regardless of where you are, you ought to be prepared. And it's not like you need to be expecting, like, oh my goodness, everyone might be trying to kill themselves. No, but you do need to be alert and sensitive to those around you. All right, so I've got a few videos that that we can watch. A lot of these are put out by Living Works, and so go ahead and play some of these for you guys.
We're facing a big problem. Our troops are dying at an alarming rate, and it's not happening in combat. It's happening here at home, to U.S. Army servicemen like Specialist Thomas. He's 24. Belongs to the 1st Battalion, 327th Infantry Regiment, 101st Air Assault Division, based in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And he loves baseball. After serving one tour in Afghanistan, everything's changed. He tries to hide it, but he's not doing well. He's not sleeping. He's got a short fuse. His team leader, Sergeant Martinez, notices him losing focus on the job. And he and his spouse just recently split up. It's all too much to bear. And one night, while off post, Specialist Thomas kills himself. Grief ripples through his family, friends, and across the entire battalion. Many will never recover from this loss. And though shocking as it seems, the reality is that suicide is the second leading cause of death among U.S. military personnel. But there is help and hope out there. It's called Living Works, an integrated approach to suicide prevention where everyone has a role to play. It all begins with Living Works Start, a simple 60-minute suicide prevention online training program that coaches servicemen and women on how to get their fellow soldiers the help they need. So, let's go back to the beginning. Back to Specialist Thomas before he kills himself, and see LivingWorks in action. Remember Sergeant Martinez? Well, he's just begun his LivingWorks START training. He's taught how to recognize the signs of someone at risk and learns how to refer that person to other LivingWorks trained service members. So when Sergeant Martinez recognizes that Specialist Thomas is in trouble, he acts on his training and takes Specialist Thomas to their LivingWorks Safe Talk trained squad leader, who pulls in the help of the LivingWorks Assist trained chaplain, who intervenes and helps develop a plan that surrounds and supports Specialist Thomas to keep him safe and changes the course of his life. Now imagine this process repeating across the entire squad, platoon, company, battalion, brigade, division, installation, among friends and family, and throughout the surrounding communities. And you create a network that keeps our soldiers safe and alive, so they can stay focused on their number one job, being ready for anything.
All right, so that is the first one. Now I want to show you guys this website right here. I know a little bit of it is cut off, but so the LivingWorks website, you can register in training yourself if you so choose. You might even be able to work it out with your unit, or if the 658th or the 9th MSC has anything, we will be sure to pass that down to you guys, definitely. But if you are interested in just a short training session, I do believe they have like a very quick, like a 90-minute training. Yeah, 60 to 90 minutes. I highly recommend it. A couple of the folks are actually one of the chaplain candidates on our UMT. He is also an assist trained chaplain candidate, and he is available just anytime if you guys need to reach out. I'm in the process of getting assist trained myself, so we just want to share this resource with you guys. If it's something that might interest you, yeah, definitely give it a look. I've got one last video for you guys.
How many people count on you each day? Let's take a minute to think about it. How many people know you're there to support them? Your friends, your family members, your coworkers, or even someone you've just met. At work, at home, at play. People count on us for a lot of things. So what if someone was counting on you for help with the biggest issue of all? The fact is, around 1 in 25 people are thinking about suicide at any given time. If one of them needed your help to stay safe and alive, would you know what to do? That's where LivingWorks START comes in. In just 90 minutes, this interactive online training will prepare you with the knowledge and skills to save a life. With engaging simulations and lifetime resources, LivingWorks START is your way to make a world of difference for someone, because you never know who's going to need you. But with LivingWorks START, you'll be prepared.
All right, so there's just some really great resources out there for suicide prevention. We hope that you guys take advantage of it. And if there's any other resources that we hear of or that we're offering, we'll definitely let you guys know as well. All right, so using some of the acronyms that are used in the LivingWorks training, we're going to look at TASK. Okay, so TASK represents the tasks that you would need to complete to help connect someone with thoughts of suicide to safety. So starting the conversation about suicide is important and can make the difference to help someone connect to the resources to save their life. So the T in TASK stands for tune in, and you need to tune in to the possibility of suicide. And so people with suicidal thoughts, they need help to be safe from suicide. So you need to notice and tune in on when to help. The A in TASK stands for ask about suicide, and people thinking about suicide may not know how to get help. So it's important to take care to ask about suicide in a clear, calm, and direct way. It's not, you don't want to ask in an accusatory way, like, are you thinking of it, as in trying to inflict guilt or shame. It's about being clear, calm, direct, caring. You got to make sure that your attitude is appropriate when you're asking. And then the S in task stands for state the seriousness of suicidal thoughts. So when suicide is a conversation, it is important to see and hear that suicide is serious. You need to let that person know, whoever you're speaking to, that you are taking them seriously, you're taking the situation seriously, and that this isn't a trifling matter, that their life does indeed have value. And the C in task stands for connect to helping resources. When a person is having thoughts of suicide, connecting them to a trained person who can help to keep them safe from suicide is the first priority. So reaching out to your chaplains, reaching out to a suicide hotline, reaching out to behavioral health, wherever you can connect the fastest, please. That's how you need to connect. All right, so we're going to look at tuning in. Okay, so here we go. So tuning in. So you need to try and tune into signs that a person is acting different than usual. Some of the things we may notice are that people are maybe sitting alone, even though there's a social gathering happening. Maybe they're distracted and quiet. Maybe they're appearing sad or distressed. Speaking of being tired and unable to think straight. Speaking of not being able to think ahead and that everything in life is too much. Maybe they're feeling overwhelmed. And these signs may create concern for and be a path to ask a person about suicide. So I think right here, this is when you really need to get to know your soldiers. So all the sergeants, all the NCOICs, all the leadership of your unit, it's really your task to get to know your soldiers and know when, sitting alone is something that's out of the norm for your soldiers. When, if they're more tired than usual, if their language is, not what they would normally use. So it's really key to really get to know your soldiers and know what's normal for them and what isn't. And so people with suicidal thoughts need and want help. Even if they don't know they do, they do. So consider what you might notice that gives clues hinting at the possibility of suicide. Now, some people ask for help directly, but more often than not, they will show us that they need help through things they do, say, show, or describe. Now, I'm sure everyone knows that there's often a stigma related with depression or suicide, and a lot of times people don't want to vocalize that they need help. A lot of times, vocalizing that you need help is a sign of weakness. It's something to be ashamed of, especially in Asian cultures. It can be a very heavy thing to broach, and so it's very key to be observant and to be aware and sensitive to what people are doing, saying, showing, or describing. All right, so looking a little closer about tuning in, when you notice or sense that a person may need help, focus your attention on them. Really tune in and ask yourself, could their struggle be about suicide? Now, this first skill focuses on how to tune in, so you need to pay attention and notice what you hear, sense, feel, see, or learn about. Consider that when a person has painful experiences, they may need help, as their thoughts might be on suicide. Now, a person who feels a sense of loss, helplessness, or hopelessness may be thinking about suicide. So take the time to follow your instincts, notice when someone needs help, and focus your attention on whether their thoughts and experiences could be about suicide. Tuning in can lead to help and safety rather than suicide. And so that is the key point right there. You need to learn how help is needed and listen to their needs and concerns. So we have an example right here. We have a conversation between June and his friend, and June's actions and words were giving off some clues for his friend to notice. So June's behavior, he has not been answering calls, he's avoiding his friends, he no longer has interest in a party that he was excited about. And then his comments were things like, oh, I'm overwhelmed, he'll just carry on without me from now on, I won't be going out anymore, I don't really enjoy anything now. and his behavior changed from life of the party to withdrawing. Okay, and yeah, so if you notice that all of these things could be about suicide, then yeah, you're right. That's those are the kinds of things that we need to be looking out for. These kinds of what almost seems like a personality change or behavioral changes. Those are the things we need to watch out for. And so we've got an example right now. And if, let's say, for example, we listen to June, we listen to him and we're like, okay, June, whatever, how could we respond? So you could say something like, oh, suit yourself, do what you want. Or you could say, are you kidding me? You're guilting me into feeling bad. Like, what's wrong with you? Or you could say, hey, I'm concerned. What did you mean by you'll just carry on without me from now on? And so I think the obvious response would be, I'm concerned, right? You want to ask someone who is exhibiting these behaviors, hey, what's going on? How are you doing? What did you mean by that? It's totally okay to tune in and to ask. And so, some actions that you might see, just another recap. So it might be personality or behavioral changes, withdrawing or isolating if it's out of the norm, substance use or abuse, moodiness, behaving in ways that are unusual, giving away possessions. All of these things are possible clues that someone might be thinking about ending their life. And so some talk that you might hear, maybe they might even talk about death or suicide or killing themselves. They might talk about their big problems that they have. Maybe they'd say they don't care, or they feel like they don't have a purpose. Maybe they start to try to be alone more. Maybe they talk about escaping or being better off dead. And some feelings that you might sense are maybe sadness or depression, hopelessness, helplessness, guilt or shame, or a sense of numbness, just not being able to feel anything at all. So those are the possible feelings you might sense. And then check out these life situations. A lot of times if folks are in the midst of abuse or violence, death or loss, relationship problems, major life changes, or painful events, these are situations that can truly bring about people thinking about not wanting to continue their life. Sometimes the stress from all of these different situations, sometimes it affects people to the point where they really don't want to deal with it anymore, even to the point of ending their life. And so it's very important too that when we get to know our soldiers, we also know about these life situations that they might be in, just so that we can anticipate and be even more aware and sensitive to what's going on. All right, so the second letter in this acronym here, TASK, is ask about suicide. And you can ask after tuning in and observing by how down you look and the things you're saying. I'm wondering if you're thinking about suicide. Like, you can ask something like that, like, hey, I'm observing these things and I'm just curious, are you thinking about ending your life? Go ahead and ask. Please ask. If you never ask, they might never have the chance to say that they need help. So it's very, very key that you do just, buck up, get some courage, and just ask. So asking about suicide, after you have tuned in and begun wondering whether there are thoughts of suicide, ask clearly, directly, and calmly. And so an example might be, you seem to be having a difficult time in life. I wonder, are you thinking about suicide? Now, you don't have to ask, specifically like that. You can, of course, ask however you deem appropriate. But just remember that it needs to be clearly, directly, and calmly. Okay? And so if we ask in a way that is unclear, like, are you thinking of harming yourself? We have not actually asked about suicide. Harming yourself can come in a multitude of different ways. And so our question needs to be clear and direct. Are you thinking about suicide? And this is clear and direct and cannot be mistaken for any other meaning. It is also important to ask about suicide in a way that is non-judgmental. So you're not accusing them, You're not trying to inflict guilt or like guilt them out of suicide. That's not going to work. Um, you just need to ask in a way that shows that you care, that shows that you believe with all of your core that this person does matter. And so, so that is where you show that you want to hear the answer. That's what you need. That's the attitude that you need to adopt. So, asking about suicide gives the person with thoughts of suicide permission to talk about their thoughts. And up until now, this person may not have felt that they could talk about the pain they were in. I think that's how it is with so many people, is that they don't know who to trust. They don't know that someone might be a safe person to talk to about their feelings, about their depression, about suicidal ideations. And so you need to be a safe person that someone can come up to and talk about. And the way that you show you're a safe person is when you ask in a calm, clear, and direct way. And so the third one is state that suicide is serious. So open up the conversation to learn more about the person's thoughts of suicide. Make multiple statements like, hey, this is very important and this is really serious. Even if a person attempts to end the conversation, continue to focus on how serious suicide is and help the person help themselves. Now, I will say you do need to use some discretion here. You don't want to, berate them or kind of keep harping on suicide if they're not, like actually seriously considering it. You do want to be clear, calm, and direct, but it's important that you just use your intuition, and to just be sensitive to how the person is receiving what you're saying to them. And so the last one is connect to help. And you can state, I can connect you with some people that really understand suicide. And you can clearly state, like, hey, we have to get you some help. And then you can call a helpline directly while you are with the person that's in need of help. It's important to know what connections that you have available for your location. So for us in Korea, we have a hotline that we can call here that's on Penn. We've also got access to the National Suicide Hotline, resources that I'll give to you guys in a later slide. But do know what connections that you have. Do you have a pastor that might be available? Do you have a chaplain that you know that you have their number? Think about what connections you have and connections that you can offer to someone who needs help. So, exposure to trauma and violence can increase vulnerability to suicide in some people. Looking out for the well-being of people in high-stress workplaces can help increase safety from suicide. And so promoting connection within communities may protect against suicide. Shared community activities play a critical role in suicide prevention. They can create a sense of belonging and provide social support to vulnerable people. And at all stages of life, being a part of supportive communities is helpful for well-being and may contribute to keeping people safe from suicide. So right here, when it's talking about connection within communities, this is so key. This is one of my personal core beliefs in just how important community is. And so I don't know if you guys have heard right now, but we've got a Strong Bonds training that's going on. It's still not too late to register. You have until December 15th to submit your RFOs and your registration form. But this is just one of the things that we're trying to do. I know right now it's COVID and you can't get together, you can't gather in person as well. You can't rent out buildings to have parties in or social events. It makes being a part of a community much more difficult now because of these limitations that we have. And so we're doing our best. Our UMT is doing our best to try to provide virtual community in any way that we can. So it's something that we're trying to do. But we do encourage you guys within your own unit, have some kind of a Facebook page, have a website, whether it's a group chat, just try to create as many communal connections as you possibly can. Make sure that everyone in your unit is connected to someone, that everyone has someone that they can chit chat with or call a friend. So I think that is truly the most important way that we can prevent suicide from happening, is making sure that people know that they're not alone. And so, to continue talking about connection, so police, firefighters, paramedics, and other emergency personnel are often the first to be called to help when someone is in immediate danger from suicide. The training first responders receive and can help them to de-escalate crisis situations, access help for individuals, and support families affected by suicide events. And people concerned about the safety of a loved one need support for themselves too. And family relationships help build connections that strengthen safety from suicide, but can also increase vulnerability if they break down. So it is true that there are some professionals out there, police, firefighters, paramedics. These are professional responders. They know exactly what to do. They've been trained. And it's also true that people who are connected to a loved one who is struggling with suicidal ideations, they also need care as well. Family connections are great, but if they break down, it can be so detrimental and probably maybe make things even worse for the person who is dealing with suicidal ideations. Again, this is where community really comes into play. When you are part of a community, whether that be a church or your unit or a sporting group, like a team or something of that nature, it is just so important to make sure that along with your family, you have outside connections that are also available to help if need be. And so connecting the person with thoughts of suicide to a helping resource who knows suicide first aid skills supports safety. And suicide is always serious. Once we have heard enough of the conversation to understand and state the seriousness of suicide, we need to create a connection to a helping resource that can help the person to be safe. And so connecting the person with thoughts of suicide to a helping resource who supports safety from suicide is important. And so you need to make that connection as soon as possible. Whatever you do, do not put this off. Do not leave a person with suicidal thoughts alone. And getting help to be safe shows how seriously we take their thoughts of suicide. So I don't know if you guys have ever had a personal situation where maybe you had a friend or a battle buddy who was considering suicide. I know for myself, this wasn't in a military context, but when I was in college, there was a girl who was dealing with suicidal ideations. And, you know, at our college campus, not many people thought of this. It was something that not many people would ever admit. However, I just asked her point blank. I'm like, hey, are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about ending your life? And she actually answered, yeah, I am. And I'm like, well, you're not leaving. So I set up a sleeping bag and I slept on the floor. She took my bed and she just stayed in my dorm room for a couple days, actually. She just didn't want to leave, and I didn't want her to leave either. I was like, I'm going to keep my eye on you and make sure that you have someone around you all the time. And then, of course, we called our behavioral health on campus. But that's just one example. I'm sure everyone has some examples of when they've experienced something like this. But don't leave a person alone. If you know someone that is actually considering suicide, whatever you do, do not leave them alone. You can stay with them and call a hotline. You can stay with them and reach out for a chaplain. But the most important thing is to stay with them and make sure that they do not act on what they're thinking about. And so the connection we will make is to someone that will help the person with thoughts of suicide to be safe. So it is important to talk about who the helping resource will be. You'll need to talk this through with the person who has the thoughts of suicide. And the person with suicidal thoughts will want to know about the helping connection. They may have ideas of who would be most helpful to them when resources are discussed. So if this person is a service member, perhaps a chaplain, maybe their unit chaplain would be the right person to ask. Maybe it's their personal pastor at their church. Maybe it is a mentor that they know that you would need to call for them. So do discuss it with the person. Make sure that they know that you are doing everything you can to make sure that they will be safe. And so on Guam, there is a behavioral health and wellness center. The crisis hotline number is here. For general calls, you can use this number here as well. And this is from their website, actually. And so they say, suicide, taking your own life, is a tragic reaction to stressful life situations, and all the more tragic because suicide can be prevented. And this is so true, you guys. It can be prevented as long as people are watching out for each other and genuinely caring about each other. So I encourage you guys to please remember that it can be prevented, and to be aware and sensitive to what's going on around you, and to have this connection right here. So if you guys want to take note of this number, save it in your phone, however it's easiest for you to access this. This is a really great resource for you guys there where you're at. There's also Military Family Life Counselors, or MFLACs. Actually, one of my aunts an MFLAC, and she is awesome. So an MFLAC is a master's degree level counselor that provides free confidential counseling separate from services offered in behavioral health clinics. So these are civilians. They are people who are contracted with the military, and they provide counseling. And sometimes people find that MFLAC counseling is maybe a more comfortable and maybe less stressful type of environment. Seeing as they're civilians, they're not as connected to the military lifestyle. You might be able to feel a little more open or free when speaking with an MFLAC. So that's why they're there for you. They provide solution-focused counseling and can meet you in a variety of locations. There are no medical records associated with seeing an MFLAC, and is completely confidential. And you can contact them directly to arrange a session. Now, there are some limitations, so any domestic violence, suicidal thinking, or homicidal thinking is outside their scope of practice and must be addressed through behavioral health. So remember, domestic violence, suicidal thinking, homicidal thinking, you can definitely talk to them about suicidal thinking. They will certainly respond, but MFLACs are more of a preventive measure. So when you start feeling depressed, when you start feeling low, it's kind of like the very beginning phases of the behavioral changes that people might notice. That's when you can refer someone to an MFLAC. I'm like, hey, you feel like, it looks like you're kind of feeling down. How about talking to someone? How about talking to one of these MFLACs that are around? And so on Andersen Air Force Base, Mr. Barry Horton is an MFLAC. And on the Northwest Field, that's Mrs. Doris Tolentino. So if you guys want to jot down their information, it is here for you if you ever feel like you need to speak to an MFLAC. And these are some other resources for you guys. You can go to suicide.org, learn more about prevention, awareness, and support. There's a military crisis line. There's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Do take advantage of these connections if you do need them. Okay, so these are numbers that can be saved in everyone's phones, or if you want to like screenshot this slide, totally up to you. But yeah, these are some good resources here for you as well. And now there's some additional resources. I've put our unit's information on here. So the 658th RSJ UMT, you can reach out to us at any time. We encourage you to do so, actually. So there's Second Lieutenant David Montez. He is also a chaplain candidate like myself. He has actually completed the ASSIST training, and so he is a great resource when it comes to suicide prevention and awareness. There's me, Second Lieutenant Diffie. My number and email are here as well, and we do welcome you to reach out. And the new chaplain at the 302nd, his name is Chaplain Umali, and I've got his information here as well. He just joined probably about 2 weeks ago. He just touched down in Hawaii. So he's still kind of getting his bearings, but he is definitely available as well for anyone to contact him. He's actually more of a direct line within the chain of command, so he is a great resource too. And so We just want you guys to know that your life has value. It most certainly does. And please, whatever happens, don't let anyone tell you differently. Um, we just want you guys to know that we're here for you, here at the 68th, and I'm sure the UMT at the 302nd as well. We do care so much for your well-being, individually and as a unit as well. So yeah, that concludes my training. I hope you guys were able to get some good resources, get some good ideas, just a refresher. I'm sure you guys have experienced plenty of suicide training sessions before, but just to reiterate, do be aware of your surroundings, do be aware of the people around you, whether they're in your unit or your family members or your friends. Just be ready. Be ready to be someone who is safe, that can utilize these tasks, and yeah, we just if you do need anything, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and just want you to know that we're here for you. All right. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and yeah, just encourage you guys to stay safe and stay healthy out there. All right. Bye bye.